Hi, I'm Li Xueying, and welcome to Asian Insider. In this episode, I speak to the Straits Times South Korea correspondent Wendy Teo about why more in South Korea are wearing the traditional hanbok attire and what that all says about the government's efforts to preserve its culture. Hi, Wendy. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Shane. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so Wendy, you have lived in South Korea for how many years now?
I think coming to 7 years in August.
Right, okay. And in all these 7 years, just curious, as a Singaporean, do you own a hanbok?
Yes, I do have one. I think I bought it maybe a year ago because I had
Okay,
to attend a friend's wedding. And
right.
then, I didn't want the traditional kind of hanbok because it's very cumbersome. And
Mm.
I think laundering it is going to be a big issue. So I actually chose a more simple, modern one.
What
Yeah.
does that mean? What does that look like?
Actually, I thought it could function as a modern wear, like
Mm.
because the top, which is like
Yes,
you have to tie at the side.
that's right.
So I chose it so that I can wear it over a t-shirt and it still looks modern. Like it has the Korean accent, but
Yes.
still
So I think like a bit like a blazer,
modern enough. It's
right?
not the very frilly, not the colors.
Okay.
It's navy blue and then the
Mm.
skirt. So basically, it's a top and a separate that can be worn separately and still not look too out of place in a work in an office environment.
So is that common in South Korea nowadays to see people wearing hanbok in its variations for just daily lives, going out and about, not just for special occasions like a wedding or some big dinner.
Yeah, so I think as office wear, daily
Mm.
wear, the modern hanbok you can see because the
Mm.
designs are really nice. It really looks like modern office wear or modern casual wear with Korean accents. So I think
Mm.
the designs are really good. And the reason why I did the story is because I actually saw it coming up. Like in the
Mm.
past year, suddenly like there's this trend, there's this
Right.
popularity. So you see, especially foreigners, you see more foreigners being very interested in these things. And a
Mm.
lot of the shops have gone online to cater to the international
Crowd.
customers.
I
Yeah.
see. And so these are like expatriates, for instance, not just tourists, right? Expatriates living in South Korea
Yes,
who
yes,
are sort of adopting a sort of local cultural tradition in their
yes.
everyday lives. Mm.
I remember there was an ambassador. I can't remember which country, but it's a European country.
Right.
Apparently, she wears a modern hanbok, like a yeah. So she wears it for all official events
Mm.
because she loves
Right.
it so much, and like she has a particular designer that she goes to who will help her design something that has the Korean accent and goes very well. It still looks very formal.
Right. And I'm going to come to the question of why there is this sort of resurgence or this surge
Mhm.
in interest among the foreigners in South Korea. But one question before that is are there concerns about cultural appropriation when it comes to foreigners, wearing the local cultural traditional attire?
Based on the interviews that I've done,
Mm.
because there are palaces in Seoul that people always go to. It's part of the tourist
Yes,
itinerary.
that's
So
right.
it's a custom to dress up in a traditional hanboks and then you go to the palace. And if you
Mm.
wear a traditional hanbok or a modern hanbok, you get
Mm.
free entry. So this
Wow.
is the way, the government's way of promoting hanbok wear.
Right.
So I think because it's so common that actually the Koreans are actually quite happy to see
Mm.
foreigners doing this. So for the modern hanbok, I feel like because the designs are actually very classy
Mm.
and very modern, so in some ways I feel like it's catering to foreigners. So they're trying to stir up this interest in
Mm.
foreigners to wear the modern hanbok.
Okay. And what's the thinking behind that? In the last year, you were saying that it was only in the past 1 year or so, even though you've been in South Korea for 7 years, that you've seen, more people more foreigners wearing these attire on the streets of South Korea. Is it because the government is going all out to promote this at this point? And what is driving that kind of calculation?
I think mainly is to do with K-pop and the
Mm.
rise of K-drama. So there's in
Okay.
the past 2 years, Squid Games, K-pop Demon Hunters,
Right.
Blackpink wore hanboks.
Mm.
But I thought the biggest catalyst, which I've referred to in my
Mm.
story, was the BTS comeback concert in March because
Okay.
their album is named Arirang.
Yes.
which is a classic Korean melody. And then they performed in front of Gwanghwamun, which is the iconic palace of Seoul. So, and
Okay.
they were dressed in modern hanboks. But that particular concert was when I noticed there was this great ground movement to wear hanbok to that particular concert. So I saw many, many people, whether they were attending the concert or not, foreigners just swarming into Seoul, and then they were just dressed in hanboks, traditional, both modern, or they will have accessories and stuff like that. So that was what triggered me to do the story, actually.
Right. And are there any other reasons for why the South Koreans themselves are also seeing this resurgence? So we've been talking about the foreigners so far. Is there essentially for the South Koreans themselves a renewed sense in their own cultural pride to want to re-embrace this attire?
I think it started from last year. So last year there was a committee that was set up. They are trying to push hanbok to be a UNESCO intangible cultural heritage
Okay.
item by the
That
year
reminds me of
2030.
how I think we tried to do the same for the kabaya.
Oh, okay. Did we
Yes.
succeed?
Yes, we did.
Oh,
I think
okay,
we
okay.
managed to
So,
get it to be gazetted as such. Yeah.
okay. So this is what they started. It was only started last year. So their aim is to get it done by 2030. Then at the same time, I think the new first lady, who was Madam Kim Hae-kyung,
Yes.
I mean, her husband was elected into office in June. She's been wearing a lot of hanboks to official events.
And
So
that's
like,
unusual for the first lady.
compared to the previous one, she is more prolific in her hanbok wear, I believe.
Humble
Because
diplomacy here.
yeah. So she wears really nice traditional ones, and like because they hosted APEC, so it started from there. And then most recently in June, she did a state visit to Italy, and then she also wore it. I think last year when the French president visited, or was it
Yes.
earlier this year, she also wore like a very nice hanbok, and apparently like the president and his wife was like, oh, they were very enamored with the hanbok. So this madam,
I think she wore one when she came for the state dinner in Singapore earlier this year.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
another
So
gorgeous
she's
piece.
so she's been appointed the hanbok ambassador
Okay.
because she's been
Right.
doing this kind of diplomacy for the country. Yeah.
Okay. So you're saying that so for the South Koreans there is this push by the government as well on different fronts.
Yes.
Any sense that the South Koreans themselves are also keen to project their own confidence, their cultural confidence, and is are hanboks just one marker of that?
To be honest, I don't see very evident signs for now. I mean, it has always been a thing to wear the traditional hanbok when it's the major festivals, which
That's
is
right.
Solal, like the Chinese New Year, and then the Chuseok, which is coming up September, October, the autumn festival.
Okay.
But based on anecdotal evidence that I hear from the interviews I do from hanbok vendors, so there is this. I think the youngsters are trying to style the hanboks differently. So
Okay.
hanbok used to have this very long full skirt that is not the most convenient for daily wear, but
Yes.
nowadays they shorten it,
Yes.
and then the accessories and then the jacket as well. So I think all this creativity has come forth
Okay.
to lead to this resurgence in the interest in hanboks. The other thing is social media. So there have been a lot of new channels, I believe, like more people, more influencers are actually wearing hanbok. So there was this male model. He goes everywhere in a traditional hanbok. Yeah, he actually
Right.
is a barista. He's also a
Yes.
model, and he
Yes.
does content on social
Yes.
media.
I think I've seen
Yeah.
his accounts. Very, very
Yeah.
telegenic.
Yes. He's
Yeah.
really tall, so he makes the hanbok look really good. Yeah.
Does he and he wears the hat and everything, right? The whole entire gear.
Yes, he wears the cut. It's called a gut, GAT.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wears that. Yeah.
But aside from the influencers, do you see young South Koreans themselves really wearing the hanbok out and about on a daily basis?
Actually, not so. It's
Not
really
so.
the
Okay.
foreigners. Yeah.
Okay.
But I think during the BTS concert, even if the Korean fans, then they start
Yes.
wearing the
Yes.
hanboks. I think you
Yeah.
need a reason. You still need kind of a reason to wear a hanbok.
to sort of
Otherwise, you
dress up a
stand out.
bit.
Yeah,
I
yeah. If
see.
you're not
Okay.
going to the palace, I think you stand out a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess that also does account for the decline in the domestic hanbok industry because despite the high profile wearers by the influencers and also some expatriates, the fact is that, as you wrote, the number of hanbok companies have actually declined. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
I think most of this was precipitated by COVID pandemic. Because during COVID, I think a lot of businesses were suffering, and more so the hanboks. It's also a kind of a declining industry because most of the masters tailor, the hanbok tailors, they're all of a certain age, like,
Right.
at least
Yes.
50s and 60s. So some of them choose not to continue. I mean, during the pandemic, they were having a hard time, so they decided, okay, I will just retire. So these are like, I spoke to many people who told me the same thing.
Right.
So I think this is, and then you can't really fight with the cheaper imports because if you go online, you can actually see really cheap hanbok versions, I would say. Yeah, like of a cheaper material. It's not the
Right.
it's not the luxurious ones that
Right.
the Korean tailors make,
Right.
but it's a more accessible price point for most
Right.
people. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, it is really how the master tailors in South Korea have also naturally passed on without successors to take over the trade.
Yes.
I see.
Yes.
And but the thing is, the government is also doing something about it, isn't it? And how
They're
is that
trying
coming
to do the
along?
Yeah, so they passed an act earlier this year. So now every 5 years they will come up with this basic plan to see how they can push forward the culture, promote it, and help the industry move along. So I think a lot of it is they're trying to both retain the traditional kind of hanbok and also promote uh, the modernization of the hanbok to make it more accessible to people, to
Right.
make it part of daily life.
Okay. So
Yeah.
where that would include, say, the modern hanboks, right? And are they made by South Korean tailors as well, or these
Yes.
are? Oh, they are. Okay.
So
So these
South
are
Korean
designers,
designers.
right? Okay. So who will then interpret it in their own way, but because they're also South
Yes.
Korean, it's seen as, I guess, authentic.
Yes.
Okay, so I want to turn to another Korean tradition, which you also wrote about in another letter from the bureau, which is the haenyeo culture. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
haenyeo.
Haenyeo
haenyeo.
culture. Okay, haenyeo. Let me give it a go. Haenyeo, and this really refers to the sea women in Jeju who free dive to harvest seafood. So I really love the stories that you found, right, of these middle-aged women who really gave up everything, their jobs. They even left their families behind in the cities to then go to Jeju to become haenyeos. And they made a living catching all manners of sea creatures from, I think one of them caught an octopus,
Yeah.
which you wrote about in the story. So I was very curious about that because, of course, we do know that in various countries, people at one point want to escape the fast-paced lifestyles in cities and they want to run to the countryside or they want to do something different, whether it's to, maybe run a bookshop, run a cafe, or, to surf or etc. But to become a diver, that really feels like quite a different level of, thumping or to actually find a new lifestyle. So can you tell us a bit more about why that is something that's become so appealing for women of a certain vintage in South Korea?
Actually, first of all, have you been to Jeju?
No. Okay, I
You
should
have to
find
go to Jeju.
an excuse. Okay, I will.
Because I think once you've been to Jeju, you will understand why people want to move to Jeju. The vibe is very good. The weather is good. I mean, the fresh air and everything is so different from city life. So I think Jeju already appeals to a lot of people who are tired of city life and they just want a slower pace. The diving thing is because haenyeo is so. There are many haenyeos in South Korea, not just in Jeju. So in the southeastern coastal areas of Busan, Ulsan, Koje, Pohang even, there is the haenyeo culture. It's just that Jeju is most well known for haenyeos. And then I think so when you go to Jeju, you're associated with haenyeos, you're associated with tangerines,
Yes.
all these associations. So I think people who move there will want to try it out.
Right.
like tangerine plucking. And then they have this like diving school where you can diving classes where you can do it as a tourist, or you
Right.
can even try it out and see whether you can make it into a profession.
Mm.
So based on what I know, most of these new haenyos, despite their age, I mean, both of them were in their 50s when they started haenyeo, which I thought was amazing.
Mm.
Actually, it's not their main. They're not. It's not their main source of income because you can't dive every day. Apparently, you only dive for 2 hours when the waters are good, like in certain weather. So it is not a main source of income for them. They actually have to do other things, which is why I think some of them run lodgings, and one of them is a math tutor.
Right. But
Yeah.
she was a math tutor before she went to Jeju, right? Or did she
Yeah. So
continue?
she's still continuing
I
because she does not
see.
want to give up on her students. So she's going to continue teaching her students until
Right.
all of them have graduated. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Aside from living in Jeju itself, what is the appeal of becoming a sea diver for these women? Is it really?
I think for
Mm.
them, it's overcoming personal challenges
Mm.
because one of them, Madam Trey Sundok, whom I
Mm.
spoke to, she didn't even know how to swim. So
Yes.
she just went to Jeju on holiday and she saw all these women in the sea, and then she
Mm.
decided, oh, I'm going to do that. So it was a very hard path for her, and then the other Haenyos did not think that she could even make it, but she simply challenged herself. And then now I think she's doing very well.
Yes.
The other lady, the math
Mm.
tutor, Madam Kim Son Hee,
Mm.
she has always been athletic. So she runs
Yes.
triathlons. So
Mm.
she dabbles in all sorts of pastimes. So I think for her, like she's a strong swimmer. So
Right.
diving to her came very naturally. So for these two people, somehow it just the diving thing just worked for them.
Right. It was very inspiring to read of their journey on this path. Now I know what I'll do when I'm in my 50s.
It was very inspiring for me to speak to them as well.
Right. Have you ever tried it?
Diving?
Yes. I mean,
No,
in this
no,
way? No. Okay.
no. But I love the Jeju beaches though. The
Okay.
water, the sun, the sand, everything is very nice.
Okay, that was a very good pitch for Jeju. And just coming back to what the government is also doing, I think similar to that for hanbok, we do see how there are efforts as well to preserve this particular tradition, right? So this haenyeo culture, as you wrote, was inscribed on the UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage of Humanity in 2016. And there's even a haenyeo day every year.
Yes.
And it's not just about these symbolic gestures, but I think government has also given is also giving new haenyeos a settlement subsidy of around 400 Sing dollars a month for the first 3 years on this job. So to what extent have such efforts, really played a role in helping to preserve these traditions and also overall, cultivating what feels like a very confident and strong culture in South Korea?
Okay, I actually interviewed the president of the Jeju haenyeo Association for my article, and she was telling me that actually, while these things are encouraging, it's still baby steps because if you look at the demographic of the active haenyos, the bulk of them are still in the 70s. So you have these aging haenyos, and there's still a huge gap to pass on the trade to people. So while these incentives are encouraging, but I think it takes some time for for the take up rate
Yeah.
to see a successful take up rate. I think when I interviewed both Madam Kim and Madam Trey, they were saying that there was a lot of naysayers saying that it's actually a very dangerous trade,
Yeah.
which is true because you're diving
Yeah.
without any equipment.
Yes.
And it's just you know you just have to give yourself up to the sea as what they tell me. And I've also heard from other people who are children of retired haenyos. So in the early days when they did not have the special oxygen therapy facilities to decompress from the diving, it
Yes.
leads to quite a number of health issues. So I think all these still remain in the psyche of the general population. It's
Right.
dangerous, and you know, do you really need to do this kind of occupation? The way the haenyeo culture came about was because these women are the wives of fishermen who went out to sea for many, many months.
Right.
And then in the meantime, they needed a way to support your family. So this was the culture kind of bore out of need. But in this modern society, there's kind of less of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it does feel like it might be fairly inevitable that it will fade away as maybe an essential trait, but it might
Yes.
still remain as
Yes.
a cultural legacy,
Yes.
as maybe a bit of a part-time thing for people to do simply because there's something that they value as being part of the South Korean culture.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Wendy, for coming on the show today and for sharing all about hanboks and haenyeo. I'm so
Happy to
sorry
share.
about that. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. See you again.
See
Bye.
you. Bye bye.
Well, that's a wrap for Asian Insider. If you would like to read our column, we have a link in our podcast show notes. You can also sign up for our Asian Insider newsletter. Thank you for joining us.